I recently read the book The Rise of Superman by author Steven Kotler. Steven is a journalist who stumbled upon the surprising gap between action and adventure sport athletes and other pro sport athletes. He noticed that while world records were being broken every few years by typical pro sport athletes or Olympians, adventure sport athletes seemed to be breaking world records every few weeks or months, and they were achieving results that were thought to be impossible. In the world of kayaking, going down a waterfall was thought to be suicide, but in the late 1990s, a kayaker went down an 80-foot waterfall and survived. Since then, kayakers have plunged themselves down waterfalls that are over 189 feet long. In the world of rock climbing Half Dome, the 2,000-foot wall in Yosemite National Park, used to take teams of people days. Now, a 22-year-old named Alex Honnold can do it in just a few hours, and he does it without a rope. Climber Jimmy Chin explains the feat. It's the equivalent of an NBA basketball player under last game of the finals pressure, having to execute 1,000 free throws, step back to the three-point line and shoot 100 three-pointers, and then, after all that physical and mental exhaustion, step back and shoot one half-court shot. All the shots have to go in, because any miss is fatal. After seeing story after story of these unbelievable feats in the world of action and adventure sports, Steven couldn't help but wonder how these athletes were doing such incredible things. In a quest to find out, he followed these action and adventure sport athletes all over the world and broke several bones along the way. What he heard from every action and adventure sport athlete was an explanation of an experience that seemed mystical. As they put their life on the line, time seemed to be distorted. Time seemed to either slow down or speed up. They all had a serene calmness and enjoyment despite the fact that they were putting their life on the line. And they had an incredible pattern recognition ability and flawless decision-making. See, Steve is a science writer, and he doesn't write articles that are based on mysticism. So he turned to the science community to see if they could explain any of this. To his surprise, these mystical experiences of peak performance have been studied for over 100 years, and the last few decades have produced concrete findings. A researcher named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi out of the University of Chicago is responsible for most of the big breakthroughs in this area, and he's come to call this peak performance state flow. He calls it flow because when somebody has the experience, every action and decision seems to lead effortlessly and fluidly to the next. Upon following the trail of research, Steven encountered studies of snipers who had their learning increased by 230% when flow was induced. A study out of the University of Pennsylvania found that people who were induced to experience flow came up with more original ideas to complex problems than people who were not. In a 10-year study at McKinsey, one of the largest business consulting firms in the world, found that executives who experienced flow reported being 500% more productive. With these findings, Steve wondered if he could help the average person achieve flow and reap the amazing benefits without needing to put their life on the line. He found the answer at the intersection of the latest science on flow and the methods of the action and adventure sport athletes he was studying. What Steven came up with is a 4-stage flow cycle. The 4 stages are struggle, release, flow, and recover. The first stage is struggle. Steven says we need to amp up our focus and alertness, get stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline pumping into our system. It's best if our problems seem unsolvable, our effort unsustainable. Research shows that if we want to obtain flow, we have to willingly tackle challenges that are just beyond our current skill level and embrace the frustration that comes along with it. After the period of struggle becomes nearly unsustainable, we need to completely release and sever all thought and emotions that are attached to what we are struggling with. Steven says, if you've been trying to master double black diamond ski slopes, take a few runs down the blues. If the innovation team has been pulling all-nighters for a week, send them out for dinner and a movie. The method is unimportant. The message is relaxation. The moment we mentally release, we release a chemical called nitric oxide. It makes it possible for neurochemicals like dopamine and endorphins to flood our brain and give us access to the elusive state of flow. Learn the art of completely letting go and detaching yourself from your struggle. If you do this, you'll gain access to the third stage, flow. When in a state of flow, the region of the brain associated with self-monitoring and self-editing goes dim. It's where your inner critic resides. It's where that voice in your head that tries to coach you through a situation comes from. Every person who enters a flow state deactivates this part of the brain. Action and adventure sport athletes have mastered this process. What separates action and adventure sport athletes from all other people is the environment in which they work in. Here are three main characteristics of their environment. First, they have high consequences. Action and adventure sport athletes take on a huge amount of risk. One wrong move means death. However, humans put social risk on the same level as physical risk. That's why the fear of public speaking is reported to match the fear of death. Therefore, if you want to experience the same level of consequence that these action and adventure sports experience, you don't need to throw yourself down a mountain. You simply need to put yourself in a risky social situation, or give someone your word and promise not to break it. Second, adventure sport athletes have a rich sensory experience. Going down a waterfall or snowboarding down a mountain provides a huge amount of sensory input, and their sense of self melts away. This doesn't mean you need to be kayaking down a 189-foot waterfall to have a rich sensory experience. It could simply mean working in novel spaces, like a cafe. Third, these athletes have immediate feedback. Every action they take is followed by an immediate reaction within their body, which in turn allows them to immediately make corrections for the next action. Our goal should be making the feedback loop as fast as possible. We want action, result, correction to occur as quickly as possible. This could simply mean externalizing all your work. Always be sketching, doodling, typing, making your work as visible as possible, so you're able to see results and activate an automatic feedback loop in your brain. When you create all three of these conditions, you dramatically increase the odds of deactivating the part of your brain responsible for self-monitoring. With that part of the brain deactivated, you gain access to the flow state. When in a state of flow, your body uses up a vast amount of neurochemicals dopamine and serotonin to keep you focused and increase your pattern recognition abilities. Without large reserves of these two neurochemicals, you won't be able to gain access to flow. Therefore, you need stage 4, the recovery phase. During this phase, you will experience a flow hangover as you try to restore your neurochemical levels by getting adequate sleep and downtime. This means completely disconnecting on weekends and making sleep a priority. So try to access flow the next time you need to write a paper or a report for work. First, you struggle. You do extensive amounts of research. You get overwhelmed and overloaded. You push yourself and you get to the point where you want to give up. And then you release. You go for a walk. Then you try to access flow by setting social consequences, promising to somebody that you'll deliver something at a certain time. You create a rich environment for yourself. You brew a cup of coffee, and you put on some music that helps you concentrate. Then you start the process of immediate feedback. You take pen, put it to paper, and start writing down. You get the tactile feedback and the visual feedback of the progress you're making. Then you recover. You stop writing at a certain time so you can get adequate sleep, so you can do it again the next day. Executing the 4-part flow cycle will give us access to flow and put us in a peak performance state, the same state that is associated with incredible breakthroughs in adventure sports. That was the core message that I gathered from Rise of Superman. In the book, Steven dives into much more detail on how you can achieve a flow state. I highly recommend it. If you would like a 1-page PDF summary of the other insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a productive day.